camp today on closing, and so there's going to be a lot of role play. So my goal is that when you leave here today, you are a ton more confident than you are that you can sit at a kitchen table and get somebody to say yes. And so just a couple of prerequisites we'll go through prior to getting into the actual processes is, I'm basically assuming that you all understand that if somebody doesn't have a policy with Primerica, that they're being done an extreme disservice because of the features on that product, right? So literally yesterday, you saw, if you were watching GroupMe, and this is a plug for GroupMe, if you're not watching GroupMe, I don't think you're going to go real far here in this business, because that's the scoreboard where all the players play, right? And so it's hard to win a game you're not watching, right? Okay, does that make sense? You're like the kid, right, at the soccer field who's chasing the butterflies instead of watching the ball, right? Okay? So your dreams for soccer stardom are fleeting when you're a butterfly chaser. But some of you butterfly chasers, you're not watching the scoreboard on GroupMe, but you saw yesterday I closed up a max case and a PLPP. This is a client of mine from 2009. It happens to be an Edward Jones guy's brother and sister-in-law. He owns our product, the Edward Jones guy. His whole family owns our product. Why? Because it's the best product money can buy. End of story. 100% of the time, the features on the Primerica product are totally unique in the marketplace. Nobody offers an end-of-term feature like our product. Okay, and so just a 2-minute recap, right? And you'll see this diagram a couple times today. But if this is money, let's call it $1 million policy. This is time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Okay, if you have a 20-year term with any company on earth, you name it, they all work the same way except for Primerica. Okay, you have a 20-year term. This is, for all practical intents and purposes, how that coverage works. You have $1 million for 20 years, and in 21 years, you have nothing. You don't technically have nothing. At this point, you get 3 choices on a normal term policy. Choice number 1 is you can renew the coverage at between 10 and 20 times the original cost. So that's option 1. You can renew the coverage at 10 to 20 times the original cost. So you're paying $1,000 a year. Now you're paying $1,000 a month. Nobody does it. That's called a renewal. Same policy, new rates, okay? The second option you have, and this is what they all hope you do, is a conversion, so convert or exchange to whole life at 20 to 40 times the cost. Okay? So you're paying $1,000 a year, now you're paying $2,000 a month. Okay? So nobody does that. What they really hope you do is you take your $1 million term policy and you get a $15,000 whole life at the end. That's what every company is hoping you do. The third option, if you need more term insurance, and virtually everybody does, right? Because the theory of decreasing responsibility is true, but not if you're not saving very much, right? Which is, we know in America today the savings rates are negative. They're not positive. So eventually people's children will grow up. Eventually their debt will pay off, but it ain't at 50 most of the time. It's not at 60 most of the time. Heck, it's not even at 70 most of the time. It's 75, 77, 78 years old before the average person now is truly self-insured. So they're going to need coverage, right? And so the third option with a normal term policy is you can take a health test again and try to buy it 20 years down the road. The problem with that is twofold. Number 1 is it's guaranteed way more expensive because what? You're 20 years older. Not a big deal. The real problem is that God does not make our bodies to get healthier and healthier as life goes on, right? Okay, so what happens is people end up not being able to reprove in. They're not going to pay $1,000 or $2,000 a month, so what happens to their policy? They drop it, and now they have nothing, right? This is how all term insurance works outside of Primerica, right? So Primerica has 2 options that are totally unique in the industry. Same $1 million 20-year term. Option 1, coverage is going to drop at the end of the term by, let's call it 50 to 75%, okay? And then it's going to amortize down to 0 at age 100 for the same price. No pricing increase at all, okay? So whatever you're paying now, you pay forever. We'll never ask you for another dollar. After the term, the coverage is going to drop and then whittle down little by little every year till 100. Why is this important? Because people's need for insurance is kind of doing one of these deals. Okay, does that make sense? And so if they don't have this feature, the odds of them getting covered again at any reasonable rate outside of us are slim to zero. Okay, with us, it's guaranteed for them to be able to do that. So that's option one with Primerica. Okay, option two, actually, let me draw the Primerica one in a different color so you can see it, right? So that's option one. Option two is you can actually keep the coverage level for another 10 years and pay only attained age. So your health is guaranteed. You are preferred today, 20 years from now, you're preferred no matter what. You had a heart attack, nobody will sell you insurance at any cost. Primerica is going to give you preferred rate insurance again, okay? So 10 years, and then it drops and does one of these, okay? And so you just pay your attained age. Either way, 100% of the time, the client is going to be better served by having our product than somebody else's product, always, not sometimes, always. So you need to get that inside of you, and you need to understand that, right? Because like I said, my client yesterday was the brother of my friend from Edward Jones. He's a client. His entire family is clients. I have people at Merrill Lynch that are clients, that are their entire family is clients. Folks, they sell life insurance for a living, these people, and they buy their own life insurance from Primerica. Okay? Anybody that understands anything about life insurance understands that this contract is completely unique. And write this down, 100% of the time will cost less than a product somewhere else. So again, I'm just giving you some basics, and then we're going to go into closing, okay? So there's two costs that you've got to be aware of in life insurance. And my favorite is when we get a newbie, Nate, right? And he's like, well, I was there and we were more expensive. False. Because there are two costs in life insurance, right? The cost during the initial term here, right? And the cost to keep coverage after the term, because they're going to need something after the term, right? Does this make sense? Okay. So most of the time, we're going to be extremely competitive on the upfront cost. All of the time, we're going to be the cheapest over the total cost that they're going to need insurance for, right? Because they probably don't need insurance for 20 years or 30 years. They probably need it for 35 or 40 or 45 years. Over that time span, it's not possible that the client were to pay less somewhere else because of this feature at the end. Is everybody following that? Okay. So let's say you're competing against a 20-year term, and they're 4 years in. Hello. That's okay. You need some help? Somebody want to grab? Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. So let's say you've got a 20-year term you're competing against. It's 4 years in. That means they have how long left? 16 years left. Is there any such thing as a 16-year term? No. So if you go to sell them a new 20-year term, but they're already 4 years into their old 20-year term, yours probably going to be more expensive. Why? Because you're starting coverage fresh 4 years in. They're 4 years older. It's taking them 4 years longer. The upfront's probably going to be a little more pricey. But over time, it's going to be a lot less expensive, right? Because in years 17, 18, 19, and 20 with us, they would have been in years 1, 2, 3, and 4 of this ungodly rate on their current one. Does this make sense? So you've got to understand that 100% of the time you're putting the client in the best possible position, and it is always going to be cheaper for them to be with us over time, 100% of the time. Why is this important that you know this, right? Because, listen, the overarching theme of this morning, right, is if you're in front of a human being, okay, that can become a client, your responsibility is to move them forward and to get them to take action. Listen, if thinking about having coverage would pay them a death claim, wonderful, but it's not. They actually have to buy the coverage, to be eligible to have their family receive a death claim, right? So if you go and all you do is give them information but don't help them take action, you didn't help them, right? You wasted their time and your time. They're not any better off, but they're educated. No, they're not. They're not. If they were educated, they would have bought, so they took action on the education and actually got a benefit from the education. So it's our moral obligation, folks, if what I'm telling you is true, and it is, that 100% of the time, the client best interests are served by being with Primerica, that they cannot have a better product at a cheaper price. No way possible. If that's true, it's our moral obligation to get them to move forward with us, because if we don't, we haven't helped them, right? And we're leaving them for disaster. Folks, you understand, if they're covered somewhere else, okay, there's a pending disaster. 10 to 20 times the cost. There's a time coming. It's not maybe. It's what? For sure. We even know when it's coming, right? We know there's a disaster coming for them financially. They need to be rescued from that disaster. It's our responsibility to move those people forward, okay? So listen, if it's not the right thing for the client, you should never ask them to move forward, okay? And if it is the right thing for the client, you write this down. You need to be prepared to go to war with that client to help them move forward. Folks, we sell a responsibility product. It is what it is, okay? It must be sold. Life insurance is not bought. It's not bought. Do you understand? Less than 2% of all life insurance sales in the United States are made by proactive people going out online and buying life insurance. 2%. Of all the life insurance sold. Could you buy life insurance online? Yes, you could buy life insurance right now in 10 minutes online, right? 2% of all the life insurance sold is online. That means 98% of it is sold to somebody by somebody else. Why? It's a responsibility product. Everybody needs it, but people don't want to take responsibility. They want to have fun, right? With the money, right? So listen, dying isn't fun, at least for most people, right? Okay, it's not fun. Nobody wants to put money towards that on their own. We've got to help them move forward. Come on in, y'all. You grab some chairs. There's some chairs in the back, okay? So it's our responsibility to help them move forward, and we need to make sure that we're prepared to, write this down, stay in the close. Statistically, most sales are made after the fourth no. After the fourth no. Most sales are made after the fourth no. Why? Do they really want to say no? Who wants to say no to protecting their family and saving tens of thousands of dollars? Nobody. But it's easier to say no than it is to think. So people are like water. They follow the path of least resistance. No. Right? That's what they've been told since they were 2. Can I have a cookie, Mom? No. Can I watch Barney? No. Right? Can I go spend the night at my friend's house? No. They've been told no 18,000 times by the time they're 5 years old. It's their favorite word that comes out of their mouth without having to think. Right? So nobody wants to put their family in financial disaster and in harm's way. Nobody wants to be overcharged, but simultaneously they also don't want to think. Right? Okay? So you've got to be prepared to stay in the close and to help that family move forward, right? Because listen, if that's the right thing for them, and it is, it's our responsibility to do that. Does that make sense? Okay, and some of you be like, well, I don't want to be a pushy salesperson. It's impossible to be pushy when what you're helping somebody do is in their best interest. You following that? Okay, if you were a doctor and somebody was going to die without the medicine that you were going to give them, and they didn't want to take the medicine, would you be a pushy doctor to get them to take the medicine that's going to save their life? No, you would be a good doctor, right? That's what you would be, and that's the exact same thing that you are here. This is not furniture that they don't need at 19% interest, same as cash for 12 months, and then we're going to get you, right? That you must buy today. That's not what this is. This is, if you don't take care of this today, you might not have tomorrow to take care of this, right? Okay? So you've got to have a sense of urgency and a feeling of responsibility that when you're sitting with a client that we get them to move forward. Because if they don't move forward, you didn't get helped, they didn't get helped, nobody's any better off, right? Okay, does everybody understand that? And something that Asad Faraj taught me early on, he said, Ian, everything you say and do at a kitchen table better be in your mind for the kids that you see walking around that house, right? That insurance ain't for mom and dad, it's for who? It's for those kids that can't defend themselves, right? Last time I checked, there were no great jobs for 6 and 8 year olds, okay, right? So everything that you're going to say and do in that house needs to be in a mindset of, I'm doing this for these children. Okay, does everybody understand that? Okay, very good. So we're going to go through very systematically a number of things here that will help you get a ton of results across the kitchen table. Okay, so watch this. Here's basically what's happening. Okay, on a kitchen table, you're going to do the presentation. Okay, you're going to set the FNA, and you're going to get into the insurance conversation. How? Right, so I'm with P. Lynn. We've set the FNA. Okay, say, P. Lynn, listen, there's a couple things that I want to take a look at today before I leave. One is your statements for any sort of old 401ks, IRAs, anything like that that you might have. Do you have anything like that? Yes or no, right? Okay, if yes, we're going to get the statement. P. Lynn, the other thing that I'd like to take a look at quickly before I leave is your current life insurance. Obviously, you have life insurance, right? Who do you have that through? At this point, P. Lynn's going to answer one of 5 ways and 5 ways only. Okay, one of 5 ways and 5 ways only. You don't need to know 100 different things here. There's 5 potential ways. Okay, so we're going to pick up here, and then we're going to piece this together. And by the end of today, you're going to be able to get to one of the 5 ways, give that mini presentation, give the A diagram, which is the close, and get the app going. Okay, for sure. So one of 5 ways. The first way is they have no insurance and they are not married, no kids, single people. How many of you were on the Sunday night call where I discussed how to do this? Okay, very good. So most of you. So we're going to go through that pretty quickly and we'll pick up on the other ones. Okay, the second is no insurance, but they are married or do have kids. So they don't have any insurance, but they do have dependents. Okay. The third sort is they have it through work. Okay?
I was going to get you a darker marker. Can you use a darker from the red or?
I just stay with this if you want.
Okay.
Okay? Fourth is they have other term insurance. Fifth is they have some form of cash value insurance. These are the only 5 scenarios that are going to happen to you on a kitchen table. There's no other scenario. Okay? So you got to understand how each one works, why it's not in their best interest that they stay in that scenario, but they get their coverage through us, right? And then we help them to move forward and take an app. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to identify the scenario, give the mini presentation, tie down questions, a diagram, and take the app. This is the flow. Okay? So once we've identified which of the 5, we're going to give a little mini presentation. We're going to get some tie down questions answered. We're going to do the A diagram. Okay, which we'll go through today. Most of you know that if you've been around for any period of time. And we're taking the app. Okay, this is the flow. If you get this process down, virtually everybody's going to buy. Okay, 8 out of 10 people I'm in front of are buying. End of story. Why? Because it's in their best interest. What's wrong with the other 2? I don't know what's wrong with them. But something is, right, okay? Because they should have bought 2. Okay, they should have bought 2. But for whatever reason, right, you can't fix stupid, right, Jeff? Okay, some people, they just don't think, right? Okay, and that's the end of the story there, right? So let's go talk about no insurance. Okay.
What's after A diagram?
So if they have no insurance and they're single, so this is scenario one. So I asked P-Lynn, so P-Lynn, you obviously have life insurance. Who do you have that with right now? She says, well, I don't have any life insurance. I say, really? You don't have any life insurance at all? Okay, have you ever thought about having life insurance, P-Lynn? They generally say, yeah, maybe, right? Doesn't matter what they say there. I just ask, so I want to know. And so here's what I do. Okay, step one is I ask for permission. P-Lynn, is it all right if I just share with you for a couple of minutes why single people need to have life insurance? Okay, right? It's my opinion that people, if you're over 18, you need to have some form of life insurance, okay? So I'm going to go through the 3 reasons. This presentation is on Primerica Online under training. I have a video presentation that's going to go through a lot of this stuff, so you can re-watch this a bunch of times, okay? So, P-Lynn, is it all right if I just give you a little bit of an idea of why I think that people need to have it? It's really for 3 reasons, P-Lynn. Number 1 is the cost, okay? Now, if they're young and single, I'm going to ask them, P-Lynn, do you ever foresee yourself maybe getting married or having children in the future? Okay, generally they're going to say yes. Say, great, so at some point in the future, you're going to need to have this, okay? So, P-Lynn, wouldn't it make sense to get it as cheap as possible versus waiting till later to pay more, right? Okay, so I'm going to say number 1 is the cost. So life insurance rates, P-Lynn, are based on 2 things, right? What do you think those 2 things are? And I let them answer, okay? You'd be surprised 3/4 of the time they get it wrong. That's how little they know about it. They don't know. No clue, right? So number 1 is what? Your age. So P-Lynn, let me ask you a question. Are you ever going to be younger than you are today? Yeah, no, right? Okay. And then I ask them this, are you sure? Okay. So are you ever going to be younger than you are today, Deb?
Nope.
Okay, are you sure about that? Right? So they laugh a little bit. I'm going to bring their guard down just a little bit, right? So number 1 is your age, right? Number 2 is your what? Your health. So God didn't make our bodies, Deb, to get healthier and healthier as life goes on, right? Okay, it's the opposite of that. So if we know the cost of this goes up based on our age and our health, and we're never going to be younger or more healthy than we are today, wouldn't it make sense to get it now and pay less for it than pay a whole lot more for it later on down the road?
Yes.
Okay. Right? That's a tie-down question. Of course it makes sense to pay less for it versus put it off and pay more for it down the road. Okay? P-Lynn, the second reason single people need to have this is for something called a living benefit. Okay? And what this says is you can take up to $400,000 out of this while you are alive. If, God forbid, you ever became very, very, very sick, a terminal illness, something like that. So, Deb, I'm just going to tell you 2 stories really quickly, okay? Write this down. Facts tell and stories sell, okay? Facts tell and stories sell. So, and you need to use these stories. So, one story, Deb, is about a lady named Cindy Kicklighter. Cindy is a regional vice president in Primerica in Connecticut. And in September of 2013, Cindy was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. Okay, they gave her 90 days to live. They told her, we don't even want to treat you. Go home and get your affairs in order. And Cindy didn't accept that. And she went down to a place called the Invita Clinic in Arizona, right, where they do all sorts of experimental treatment. Okay, non-FDA approved means one thing to your health insurance company when you go to pay those medical bills. What does it mean, Deb? It means they're not paying for any of it, right? Okay, so this is $23,000 a month this woman spent out of her pocket to go get experimental treatment, and twice a month she would drive from Arizona to Mexico to get a blood transfusion that's illegal in the United States. Can't get it at any cost, 10 grand a pop. This woman was paying $43,000 a month out of her own pocket to try to get treatment. That was September 2013 with 90 days to live. Deb, it's January of 2017. She's alive and doing well today for one reason. That reason is she had money to do what average people can't do when it comes to their health. The other story I want to tell you real quick, Deb, is about a guy named Magic Johnson. You've heard of him, right? Okay, in 1990, Magic Johnson had AIDS. In 1995, every human on the planet that had AIDS in 1990 was dead, except for one person named Magic Johnson, right? Why? Because Magic Johnson paid 10 grand a week to get brand new blood infused into his body for a decade until the medicine caught up with his disease. Today, Magic Johnson is alive, doing well. There's no sign of AIDS or HIV in his body. Why? Because he had what, Deb?
Money.
He had money to get treatment his health insurance company wouldn't have provided. Deb, let me ask you a question. If God forbid something like that happened to you and you had an account with $400,000 in it, would that be helpful just in case?
Absolutely.
Do you have an account with $400,000 in it right now just in case?
No.
Do you see why you need to have this?
Absolutely.
Okay, folks, do you see these questions, right? This is so simple if you'll just get right to the point. Do you understand why you need to have something like this? Yes. Would it be helpful to have it? Yes. Do you have something like this right now? No. Do you understand why you need to have this? Yes. Very basic, right? Okay. The third thing, Deb, is this. Most people think life insurance is there to protect their spouse, their kids, right? People they love in case of a premature death. So let me ask you this question, Deb. I know you're not married. I know you don't have any kids. Is there anybody on this planet that you love and care about that's not doing well financially right now?
Yes.
Sure, right? Okay. If you had tons of money, you would help those people, right? Of course, they're near and dear to your heart. If God forbid something happened to you, Deb, and you passed away, and 2 weeks later, that family got a check that paid off all their debt, that sent their kids to school, that gave them a shot at being able to retire, and they got that check in the mail, they saw it was from you, Deb, how would that family feel about you in that moment, looking at what you did for them? They feel incredible, right? Okay. Deb, do you understand why you should do this?
Yep.
Great. A diagram, take the app. Okay, you following this? So most people don't ever stop and think, and that's why they come to the wrong conclusion. But if you're willing to teach them a little bit, most people will make the right choice. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to pair up. So you're going to pair up to the person next to you. Okay, and you're going to give this presentation. How long did that presentation take? About 3 minutes, 4 minutes, right? You're going to give this presentation. So the person sitting next to you is single. They don't have dependents, right? You ask them, so who does your life insurance? I don't have any life insurance. Really, you don't have any life insurance. Have you considered it? Do you mind if I just share with you a few reasons why I believe single people should have life insurance? Great. 1, 2, 3. Listen, the person being presented to, right? This is not pat each other on the back and tell each other you're awesome when you're not. This is listen to what they're saying to you, look at what I said, and help them. Make some notes, some constructive criticism. Here's where you were good. Here's where you need to improve. This wasn't real great. Okay? We want to actually get good at this. And so it's easier to be bad with people that aren't trying to buy from you than people that are, right? Okay, so you're going to give that presentation to each other one time each. Okay, when you're done as a group, raise your hand. Okay, everybody understand what you're doing? Mm-hmm. All right, go ahead and pair up.